Nexa's sixth appendage trembled as he accessed the restricted archives of the Galactic Academy's library. His study partners, Telora and Vix, huddled close, their bioluminescent patches dimming with anxiety. "We'll be expelled if anyone catches us," Telora whispered, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft glow of the holographic interface. "Worth it," Nexa replied, his neural tendrils connecting with the ancient database. "Don't you want to know why the professors get so nervous whenever someone mentions Earth?" The three junior cadets at the Galactic Federation's most prestigious military academy had spent cycles wondering about the mysterious species 7249, officially listed as quarantined, special diplomatic status. Unlike other quarantined species, humans maintained embassies, traded freely, and even had cultural exchange programs. Yet, they were explicitly banned from participating in any galactic military operations. The archives flickered to life, revealing footage from 50 cycles ago. A Primarch-class exploration vessel, the Pride of Centauri, approached a blue-green world in an unremarkable spiral arm. Standard first contact protocol, Vix noted, his compound eyes rapidly processing the data. Why would they classify this? The footage continued. The Pride of Centauri deployed its standard greeting array, a sophisticated display of peaceful intentions through gravitational wave manipulation. The response was unexpected. Hundreds of small craft emerged from the planet's atmosphere. The archive noted them as primitive chemical propulsion vehicles. The Primarch's crew dismissed them as ceremonial escorts. Then the impossible happened. The primitive craft executed maneuvers that defied the known laws of physics. They moved in ways that suggested intimate knowledge of gravitational wave manipulation, technology that should have been centuries beyond their capability. "That's impossible," Telora breathed. Their civilization hadn't even achieved unified planetary governance. How did they? The footage abruptly cut to a different scene. The Pride of Centauri's captain, a respected Archean named Kolveth, stood before the Galactic Council. "They didn't reverse engineer our technology," he testified, his scales pale with remembered fear. "They developed their own methods. Different principles, same results. And that's not the worst part." What could be worse than a pre-unified species achieving gravitational manipulation? A council member demanded. "They did it by accident," Kolveth replied. "They were testing experimental propulsion systems. Their scientists didn't even realize they were manipulating gravity until we told them. They called it a happy side effect of their research into something called Alcubierre bubbles." The three students exchanged shocked glances. Accidental discovery of advanced physics was supposed to be impossible. The Galactic Federation's entire educational system was based on the principle that species developed technological understanding in a precise, predictable sequence. "There's more," Nexa said, neural tendrils diving deeper into the archive. "Look at these combat reports." But before he could access them, the holographic interface suddenly went dark. Standing behind them was Dean Zixvari, her ceremonial armor gleaming in the low light. "Fascinating reading, isn't it?" she said, mandibles clicking with amusement. "Perhaps it's time you learned the truth about why we keep such close watch on our human friends." The students froze, expecting punishment. Instead, the dean activated her own neural interface. "Let me show you what happened next," she said. "But first, you must understand something crucial about humans. They don't think like us. They don't follow our rules. And most importantly, they don't know when they're supposed to fail." Dean Zixvari's neural projection filled the library's secure chamber with a view of Jupiter's swirling storms. The three students watched as massive Galactic Federation warships moved into position around the gas giant. "This was our first military encounter with humans," the dean explained. "We thought we understood their capabilities. We were wrong." The footage showed the Federation's 7th Fleet, 50 capital ships strong, approaching Earth's solar system. Their mission: to establish a protective quarantine around humanity's homeworld until they achieved proper technological development sequence. Standard containment protocol, Vix noted. But something went wrong, didn't it? Everything went wrong, Zixvari replied. Watch. The Federation fleet encountered no resistance as they passed Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. Long-range scans showed Earth's primitive chemical rockets couldn't possibly reach Jupiter in time to mount a defense. Victory seemed assured. Then Jupiter's storms began behaving strangely. They weaponized the magnetosphere, Tellura whispered in awe. That shouldn't be possible for their tech level. The massive planet's already powerful magnetic fields suddenly intensified 1,000-fold. Federation shields, designed to deflect physical and energy weapons, provided no protection against the targeted electromagnetic pulses that followed. The neural projection showed Federation ships losing power one by one, their crews scrambling to understand what was happening. But the humans weren't finished. Small craft emerged from hiding places in Jupiter's atmosphere, stations that had been completely invisible to Federation sensors. They called them Storm Riders, the Dean explained, ships designed to surf Jupiter's electromagnetic fields. The humans had been practicing planetary warfare in the most inhospitable environment they could find, just to see if they could. Nexar's neural tendrils curled in disbelief as he watched the footage. The human vessels, tiny compared to Federation warships, used Jupiter's magnetic field like a weapon, redirecting plasma from the gas giant's storms to disable or destroy the invading fleet. 27 capital ships lost, Zixvari continued, before the fleet commander ordered a retreat. But here's what truly terrified the Federation Council. We later learned that this wasn't even their primary defense system. The Storm Riders were just an experimental program they happened to have in place. A hobby project. A hobby. Tellura's crystalline structure flickered with confusion. They developed magnetospheric warfare capabilities as a hobby. Precisely. The Dean's mandibles clicked in what might have been appreciation or fear. While we carefully followed the prescribed technological development sequence, humans simply tinkered. They tried things because they were curious. They solved problems they didn't even have yet, just to see if they could. The projection shifted to show the aftermath. Federation diplomats arriving at a hastily arranged peace conference, expecting to find gloating humans demanding reparations. Instead, they found engineers eager to discuss the technical details of their magnetic field manipulators. They weren't even angry, Zixvari said. They were excited to share notes about that interesting experiment. Their lead scientist actually apologized for not having time to develop anything really impressive for planetary defense. But if they're this capable, Nexar asked, why are they banned from galactic warfare? Shouldn't we want them as allies? The Dean's compound eyes gleamed. That's the interesting part. They weren't banned. They were convinced to accept a diplomatic classification that made them appear banned. The truth is far more complex and far more frightening. She paused, regarding the students carefully. Would you like to know why the Federation really keeps humans away from galactic conflicts? The three students nodded eagerly, even as warning signals pulsed through their neural networks. Some knowledge, once gained, couldn't be unknown. Very well, the Dean said. But first, you need to understand what happened at the Academy itself. The incident that made us realize just how different humans truly are. Dean Zixvari's neural projection shifted to show the Academy's grand halls from 20 cycles ago. The familiar crystalline spires took on a different character in the historical footage, more pristine, less weathered by time. Before I show you what happened, the Dean said, you need to understand that we had actually invited humans to join the Academy. A gesture of peace after the Jupiter incident. We thought we could guide their development. Nexar, Tellura, and Vix watched as the projection showed the arrival of the first human cadets. They looked surprisingly similar to their modern counterparts, bipedal, soft-skinned, dressed in simple uniforms. Their test scores were unremarkable, Zixvari continued. Slightly above average in some areas, slightly below in others. Nothing to suggest what was coming. The footage focused on one particular training exercise, the impossible scenario, a famous part of Academy history that all current students knew about, but whose details had always been suspiciously vague. Every species approaches the impossible scenario differently, Talora observed. It's designed to be unwinnable, to teach acceptance of inevitable defeat. Correct, the dean clicked. We've run it 10,000 times. The best students manage to delay their defeat by up to 6 standard units. Most accept the inevitable within 2 units. The projection showed a human cadet named Sarah Chen entering the simulation chamber. Unlike the other species who typically came prepared with complex tactical analyses, she carried nothing but a small datapad. Watch carefully, Sixvari instructed. The simulation began. A standard setup, one small vessel against an overwhelming enemy force. The typical approach was to attempt various defensive strategies while accepting the ultimate futility of the exercise. Chen did something else entirely. She's not even trying to defend, Vix noted, compound eyes widening. What is she doing? The human cadet had immediately sent her ship on what appeared to be a suicide run directly at the enemy fleet. But instead of attacking, she initiated a complex series of maneuvers that made no tactical sense. She's drawing them in, Nexel realized. But why? She can't possibly. Then it happened. The human's seemingly random flight pattern had gradually pulled the enemy ships into a very specific formation. A formation that, due to the simulation's underlying physics engine, created a cascading resonance effect. The entire enemy fleet was torn apart by its own gravitational interactions. 300 simulated ships destroyed in less than 1 standard unit, Zixvari said quietly. Using nothing but basic maneuvering thrusters and an understanding of gravitational harmonics that she'd apparently developed while doodling during quantum mechanics lectures. The students watched in stunned silence as the replay continued. Academy investigators demanded to know how Chen had discovered this technique. I was bored in class, the recording showed her explaining, and I started wondering if you could use gravity like a musical instrument. Make ships dance. It was just a fun math puzzle. I didn't realize it would actually work. Just a fun puzzle, the dean repeated. She discovered a fundamental principle of tactical gravitodynamics, something our best scientists hadn't theorized in 10,000 cycles, because she was bored in class. What happened to her? Tellera asked. She apologized for breaking the simulation and offered to help fix it. Then she asked if she could try again with the patch applied because, in her words, now it might be an actual challenge. The dean's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or dismay. That's when we began to understand. Humans don't just solve problems differently, they fundamentally refuse to accept the concept of an impossible scenario, and that makes them incredibly dangerous. But surely one creative solution doesn't explain why they're banned from galactic warfare, Nexa protested. No, Zixvari agreed. What happened next does. You see, after we patched the simulation, word got back to Earth about Chen's interesting puzzle. Within a standard cycle, their scientists had developed an entire new branch of theoretical physics based on her classroom doodles. They called it harmonic gravitic orchestration. The dean's compound eyes dimmed slightly. That's when the Federation Council made their decision. But to understand why, you need to see what happened when we tried to actually fight humans in real combat. The neural projection flickered, ready to show the next chapter in humanity's strange journey through galactic society. The dean's neural projection shifted to show a massive star field, illuminated by the flash of weapons fire. 3 Federation battle groups faced off against a single human defense fleet near the edge of their solar system. This was our last attempt at conventional military engagement with humans, Zixvari explained. After the Jupiter incident, the Federation thought it had learned its lesson. Better ships, better tactics, better intelligence. We were wrong again. Those human ships look primitive, Vix observed, his compound eyes focusing on the blocky, inelegant vessels. "That's what we thought too," the dean clicked. "Simple kinetic weapons, basic energy shields, primitive targeting systems. By our standards, they were hopelessly outmatched. Watch what they did with those primitive tools." The projection showed the human fleet breaking into smaller groups, a terrible tactical error according to all Federation military doctrine. Their ships started moving in strange, seemingly random patterns. "They're dancing," Telora whispered, her crystalline structure vibrating with sudden understanding. "Like in the simulation." But this was different. Instead of using gravitational harmonics, the human ships were creating complex patterns of electromagnetic interference. Their primitive kinetic weapons weren't aimed at Federation ships. They were fired into carefully calculated positions in space. They turned the battlefield itself into a weapon, Nexa realized, neural tendrils curling in amazement. The Federation fleet found their advanced sensors confused by a web of electromagnetic distortions. Their targeting systems, trying to compensate for the interference, actually made things worse. The humans had somehow turned the Federation's technological superiority against itself. They called it electromagnetic jazz, the dean explained. They treated space warfare like a musical improvisation, each ship adding its own notes to create a symphony of chaos, but only chaos for us. They could see through it perfectly because their primitive targeting systems weren't trying to be clever. The students watched as Federation ships, their advanced AI targeting systems thoroughly confused, began firing at sensor ghosts and phantom readings. The humans simply maneuvered through the chaos they had created, picking off ships one by one. But here's what truly terrified the Federation Council, Zixvari continued. After the battle, we discovered that the humans had developed this entire strategy in less than a standard cycle. They went from Chen's classroom doodles to a completely new form of space combat in the time it takes us to approve a minor ship design modification. The projection showed the aftermath. Federation commanders trying to understand what had happened, tactical analysts attempting to decode the humans' battle patterns. But there was no pattern, not really. Each ship had been improvising, working together in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. We later learned that many of their ship commanders were something called jazz musicians in their spare time, the dean said. They understood intuitively how to create and navigate chaos. They didn't just think outside our tactical box. They refused to acknowledge that the box existed at all. "Is that why they're banned?" Telora asked. "Because they're too unpredictable." Zixvari's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "No, the true reason is simultaneously simpler and more terrifying. You see, after this battle, Federation intelligence discovered something about human military development that changed everything." The dean paused, her compound eyes scanning the three students. "Are you absolutely certain you want to know? This knowledge, it would change how you view everything about galactic society." The students exchanged glances. They had come too far to turn back now. "Show us," Nexa said firmly. The neural projection began to shift again, ready to reveal the truth that had reshaped galactic politics. The neural projection shifted to an ornate chamber within the Federation Council's headquarters. Emergency sessions had been called after the discovery that shook the foundations of galactic society. "What you're about to see was classified at the highest levels," Dean Zixvari warned. "It changed how we view not just humans, but our entire approach to technological development." The projection showed Federation intelligence officers presenting their findings to the Council. They had finally understood why humans developed technology so differently from every other known species. "They fail," Telora observed, watching the presentation. "They fail constantly." "Precisely," the dean clicked. "While every other species carefully builds upon proven success, humans throw 1,000 ideas at the wall to see what sticks. Their development isn't linear, it's chaotic, wasteful, and incredibly fast." The intelligence report revealed a startling truth. For every successful human innovation, there were hundreds of failed attempts. But instead of seeing these failures as setbacks, humans treated them as valuable data points. "Look at this," Nexa said, neural tendrils writhing in disbelief. "Their electromagnetic jazz warfare, it came from failed experiments in communication technology. They weren't trying to develop a weapon at all." "That's what terrified the Council," Zixvari explained. "Humans don't just develop technology faster than us, they develop it accidentally. Their failures in one area become breakthroughs in another. It's completely unpredictable." The projection showed the Council in heated debate. Some advocated for immediately containing the human threat. Others argued for trying to learn from their methods. Then the humans did something unexpected. They proposed their own solution. The footage showed a human diplomat, a small, unassuming female named Dr. Maya Patel, addressing the Council. Her words would reshape galactic politics. "We understand your concern," she said, her tone surprisingly gentle. "You see our development as chaotic and dangerous. From your perspective, we're like children playing with antimatter. But we have a proposal that might benefit everyone." The Council chamber fell silent as she continued. "Ban us from galactic warfare, not because we're dangerous, but because we're more valuable as innovators than as soldiers. Let us focus on what we do best, pushing boundaries, making mistakes, and finding unexpected solutions." "A diplomatic masterstroke," the Dean commented. "They transformed their perceived weakness into their greatest strength." The projection showed the details of the agreement that followed. Humans would be officially banned from galactic warfare, a face-saving measure for the Federation. In return, they would have unprecedented freedom to conduct research and development. "But here's what the humans understood that we didn't at first," Zixvari explained. "Being banned from warfare didn't mean they couldn't defend themselves. It meant they could develop defensive technologies without any oversight or restrictions." The students watched as the implications became clear. The Federation had effectively given humans permission to continue their chaotic innovation while maintaining the illusion of control. "They're not contained," Vix realized, his compound eyes widening. "They're unleashed." "Exactly," the Dean clicked. "And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle. The real reason we maintain this diplomatic fiction." The neural projection began its final shift, ready to reveal the ultimate truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Dean's neural projection showed a series of images from across human space: massive research stations, experimental shipyards, and testing grounds that defied conventional understanding. "The ban was never about keeping humans out of warfare," Zixvari explained. "It was about giving them the freedom to develop without constraints, while maintaining the illusion of control that the Federation needed." The students watched as the projection displayed classified data about human technological development over the past 50 cycles. The growth wasn't linear, or even exponential. It was something else entirely. "Look at their defense systems," Nexa pointed out. "They're not even recognizable as weapons anymore." Indeed, the latest human innovations seem to blur the line between civilian and military technology. Space stations that could phase shift through dimensional barriers, shields that redirected energy into parallel universes, and communication systems that operated through quantum entanglement. "They called it defensive architecture," the Dean clicked. "But we all know it's really about pushing the boundaries of what's possible. The ban gives them perfect cover. Everything can be classified as defensive research." The projection showed a recent incident where a hostile species had attempted to raid a human research facility. The attackers' ships simply ceased to exist. No weapons were fired. No energy signatures detected. They were simply gone. The humans claimed it was an accidental discharge from a failed experiment in spatial folding, Zixvari said. They apologized and offered to help locate the missing ships, in whatever dimension they might have ended up. "But if they're this advanced," Tellera asked, her crystalline structure flickering with confusion, "why maintain the pretense? Why not just acknowledge their power?" The Dean's mandibles clicked in what might have been appreciation. Because humans understood something fundamental about galactic politics, fear leads to conflict, but a mutual fiction can lead to peace. The projection showed a recent Federation Council session. Human representatives, still playing their role as a restricted species, politely accepting limitations on their military activities while casually mentioning their latest defensive research breakthroughs. The ban isn't a punishment, Vix realized. It's a shield, protecting humans from our fear and protecting us from our own worst instincts. Precisely, Zixari confirmed. And here's the most remarkable part. They genuinely seem to prefer it this way. They'd rather explore and innovate than dominate. The final images showed the latest human research projects, experiments that seemed to bend reality itself, ships that could manipulate time, energy systems that tapped into the fundamental forces of the universe, and always classified as defensive research. So now you know, the dean concluded, shutting down the neural projection. Humans aren't banned from warfare because they're dangerous. They're banned because they're too valuable to waste on something as primitive as fighting. They're our chaos engines, our innovation drivers, our reminder that the impossible is just something that hasn't been tried enough times yet. The students sat in stunned silence, processing what they'd learned. Finally, Nexa spoke. What do we do with this knowledge? The dean's compound eyes gleamed. You do what we've all learned to do. You watch, you learn, and you remember that somewhere out there, humans are probably discovering something impossible right now, simply because nobody told them they couldn't. As the students left the library, they passed a human exchange student in the hallway. She was sitting cross-legged on a gravity pad, apparently solving complex equations while listening to something called jazz through neural inductors. They watched her with new eyes, understanding finally that the greatest power in the galaxy wasn't the ability to win wars, it was the courage to fail spectacularly in the pursuit of the impossible. The ban wasn't a constraint. It was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the freedom to dream without limits, to fail without consequences, and to discover without fear. And somewhere in human space, another impossible discovery was waiting to be made, just because someone was bored enough to try.